I am a big fan of creative advice, both receiving it and giving it. And there's one piece of advice that I'm somewhat fond of that you've probably heard before, but one that I think deserves some deconstruction, and which I'm going to talk about my own relationship with. It's the piece of advice that you can't force it. You'll hear this from creatives all the time. If you want to get into some kind of creative passion, you can't force it. And I feel like that's hard to hear. You know, it's hard to hear you can't make yourself be into something or be good at something or want to do something. You have to enjoy it. You have to just want to do it somewhat naturally. And I mean, if you're someone who struggles with the fact that you want to be an artist, but you just don't seem to be doing it and you're just trying to force it, it can suck to hear that. But the thing about that piece of advice is that that's not coming from someone who's saying like, well, my job came naturally to me, so you should all just be like me. I think that piece of advice comes from the fact that whoever's saying it has themselves struggled with trying to force themselves into something. And for me, that is certainly the case. I have spent a long part of my life trying to force myself to be good at things that I am just not good at, that I just don't have the creative voice for. When I was in high school, I was determined to be a film director. All I wanted was to direct films. I would try to work on screenplays and ideas for movies while I was in school, but I never actually wrote a screenplay. The closest I ever got was about 20 pages of describing a movie that I wanted to shoot, but not actually writing it. And I would say all the time, I'm going to write that screenplay today, I'm going to write that screenplay. But the fact of the matter is, I hate writing screenplays. Writing screenplays sucks. I hate it. It's boring. I don't want to do it. I hate writing dialogue. Every piece of dialogue I write just sounds corny to me. I can never write anything that I'm happy with. I hate describing anything. And that's where I ran into my next problem, because once I realized that I couldn't be a director after already having my dad having gone all in on buying a professional video camera for me and my cousin Boyd and my brother Victor to use to make films, which we did not really end up using, which was a huge, huge loss for everyone involved. But I gave up on being a director because at some point I realized that I'm just not doing it. I never took that camera and went out and shot something, you know? And when I would look, there was all these directors I looked up to, like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, who had written a book about, you know, indie filmmaking and just getting up and going out and doing it. Getting whatever you can, getting whatever materials you can, writing all the time. You know, Tarantino had a saying where he said, you should write movies all weekday, every weekday, and then on the weekends, shoot those movies, or shoot whatever you have, you know. I never did any of it. I had the time, I had the materials, I had the personnel. I didn't have any of the expertise. I had no idea what to do with a camera, but I also didn't go out to learn. I didn't go out and just start shooting random things like a lot of filmographers do, because I just don't like doing it. I don't like actually the process of making a film. I just wanted to be a filmmaker so bad. It just seemed like the best career choice, you know, because I had all these images in my head that I thought seemed so cool that I wanted to put on screen, but it's not for me. And that's the problem, is that there's a huge difference between enjoying the product of something and enjoying the process of it. There's a huge difference between, you know, wanting to make something that looks good and then actually enjoying the process of making it look good. You know, like I have images in my head of great scenes from films, but when I think about what it would take to get that scene, because I know now that I've, you know, my brother, Victor, actually did end up becoming a director. He actually ended up going to film school and, you know, completed a degree. He has all kinds of equipment. He knows exactly what to do. He's worked on a lot of film sets. He actually has worked on professional films at this point. And he knows all the stuff that I never knew. I never had a clue about any of that. As much as I wanted to be a director, as long as I identified with that, I never knew any of that shit that he knows now, that he can do. So that is why you shouldn't try to force it, because that's years of my life that I wasted on this dream that if I had been smarter and realized what I was doing, I would have switched gears and gone to something else way sooner. Then I wanted to be a novelist because I was already pretty okay at writing. I'd been writing since I was like 10, and I do enjoy writing. But most of what I'd written wasn't fiction, and most of the fiction I tried to write ended horribly. I would write a couple of pages of a new story once every couple of months, and then I'd never go any further with it. I would hate all my ideas, and I have stories that are still in my head, that have been in my head for 10 fucking years, that I still think about, that I still wish were real, but writing sucks. As I said, I hate describing things. I absolutely hate trying to write a description, like a visual description of anything. Because to me, it should all be on a film. Like, if it's a visual, I should have a picture of it. The idea of having to conjure a visual in my imagination, I hate it. I don't even like reading books. You may have noticed I mostly talk about video-centric mediums because I don't even really like reading. I don't like constructing images in my imagination. I like seeing images with my eyeballs. So writing was always going to be a bad idea in that form, fiction writing, I mean. But critical writing and writing reviews and blogs and analysis, that was something I just was doing. All this time, all that time I was talking about trying to become a director, trying to become a novelist, I was just writing a blog, like, continuously all the time, because I loved doing it. It was so much fun. And I thought there was no future in it. I thought there can't possibly be a way to make money writing a weird anime blog. And everyone I had seen who was making money writing about anime were doing it in a very, standard style. You've got your Anime News Network reviewers who are writing a review that has to be, under, 500 to 1,000 words or so, and, just a certain style. I actually, one time when I was a teenager, applied to be a writer at Anime News Network, and they shut me down. One of the reasons cited was that I kept using the word I. And that, if anything, is perfectly indicative of my style. As you all know, I'm the otaku gonzo journalist. So that's sort of where that identity came from. That feeling of, if I want to write for a real anime magazine, online or offline, I have to stop saying I have to not be gonzo, because that's not what they want. And so I really thought there's no way to make a career out of it until I discovered YouTube and found this culture of people who were kind of already doing it. This culture that's always about the person, the vlogger, the writer, the animator, the whoever it is, the Let's Player. And so this seemed like the perfect medium for me. But here's the other thing, though. Even as a YouTuber, nowadays, to this day, it seems like this is all, rosy-colored, right? I found my avenue, I stick to it, and then I'm just there forever. But even today, I constantly have things that I see, and I go, oh, I should be doing that, and then I realize that's not me, and I can't force that. Today, I had a 1-2 punch of looking at other people's work and thinking, why isn't that me? The first one is from this video series that exists online where Naoki Urasawa, the manga artist who drew 20th Century Boys and Pluto, Monster, and Yawata, and a few others, he has this series where he did these 45-minute videos where he interviews other manga authors. He has a film crew go into their studio, film their process. He watches back a video of them doing all their stuff and talks to them about their manga work. And I was watching the one he did with Inio Asano, who is the author of Oyasumi Punpun, Solanin, Dead Demons, Dead Destruction. I think that's the name of that one. And Inio Asano's process is fucking crazy. Because what he does is he goes out and takes photographs of locations, then he prints out those photographs, and then he draws over them with ink and draws in details to make it look more hand-drawn, and then scans them back into the computer and then draws his characters over those backgrounds. And then he'll also, like, in his current manga where he's designing, like, all these alien spaceships and stuff, he'll, like, take pictures of random shit in his house and then, like, morph it and do all these crazy things to it in editing it on the computer and, like, make it into something new. And as I'm watching that, as I was watching him go up onto his roof, the roof of his apartment, or his studio, rather, at the roof of his studio, and take, like, this weird thing and put it on the ground and take a picture of it before going back inside and remaking it into something else, I was like, that is how I want to do manga. You know? Think about that. I don't draw manga, but that's how I want to do manga. That's the thought that went through my head. Because that's the kind of stuff I love. I love making art out of random things that I find laying around. You know, if you have ever seen stuff like when I did the, and I don't do a lot of these in video form because I get a lot of ideas for them, but I never am sure if they're interesting enough for anybody. But like when I did that video where I went to FYE and bought a random DVD of a show I'd never heard of just so I could, like, talk about a show I'd never heard of, or stuff like my Crunchy Roulette videos and stuff like that. I love, like, that found art, found commentary. Like, I went out to just pick up something random, and whatever I picked up, I have to now make a thing about that. You know, I like that kind of shit. And, you know, for me, though, my creative voice is not about drawing anything. It's not about that. For me, it's all about rambling. I love talking. I love going on long, unbroken tangents with nothing in between. The second punch I got out of this was Nerdwriter made a video about the YouTuber Casey Neistat, who I'd never really heard of until this point. He's very famous, so I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of him. But Nerdwriter made this video about the way he edits his vlogs and the sheer amount of effort that goes into them. So I started looking into this guy, and Casey Neistat puts out a video every day with a level of effort put into it that would rival most of my own content. Content that is fully written and, you know, edited by the Devu and stuff like that. But the style of it is so fundamentally different that it's not worth comparing them. Because what Casey will do is he'll go out into the world, he'll leave his house, and he'll just find things to capture in video that are just great. He'll just find images that work, and he'll just tell a story through images, a story of mostly images. There's actually not a lot of words in his videos. He'll just capture a bunch of images, string them together through really clever editing and really clever filmography, and so much of it is just the way that he seems to think. Like, he thinks to hold a camera up, say half a sentence, and then flip the camera down at the end, and then when he gets to the office, flip the camera up and continue the sentence. You know, because he'll have videos where the camera dips down and back up and he's in a different place and he's still continuing the same sentence unbroken, and it seems totally natural. But to just think about that, he has to be walking around New York thinking, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this sentence, cut it in half, and do the rest of the office, you know. It's genius. And when I look at that, my immediate thought is like, well, I could do that. Right? Like, I could go around with a camera and film a bunch of random shit and edit it into cool videos, because it would be fun. I'm sure it's fun to edit that kind of footage together. But then I had to take a step back and be like, wait a minute. I don't live in New York City. I live in Virginia Beach. My house is the size of an apartment in apartment building in New York, you know? Like, my room's the size of an apartment in New York. New York is densely packed. You leave your house and something's there. You can ride your bike to work. You could ride a motorized skateboard to work, as Casey does a lot of the time. Here in Virginia Beach, I could maybe get down the driveway in that. You know, you can't go anywhere here by bike. You can't go anywhere here by walking other than the neighborhood, and you're there to walk. I mean, there's a few stores near me that you can walk to, but it's not, you can't just go around the city that way. It's a huge city, and it's fairly provincial, so you really gotta drive anywhere. And also, I don't like to go anywhere other than out to eat. There's nowhere I am interested in going. To me, the most interesting location in Virginia Beach is this room. The most things relevant to my interest, the most things that I can do with myself are in this room. It's surrounded with stuff I like. All the walls are plastered with stuff I like. There's a computer in here that I spend the vast majority of my time on. And sometimes I go days without really going outside or seeing the sun, you know? And I'm okay with that. Because Casey's videos are all outside because he doesn't like being inside. He likes to go out and go do things and see people and film, you know, weird, interesting stuff. And I don't. I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in filming my figure collection or like what's going on in a current anime show. It's just a different voice. And, you know, when I look at his videos, I feel like, well, those are so great. Like, surely that, like, that's what something to aspire to, right? Like, to aspire to have all that footage and be able to do that and operate like that. And I'm like, wait, but that's not who I am. Digibro is after dark. Digibro, me, I'm a person who doesn't ever have a fixed sleep schedule. I usually am up at night because this is just the hours that I operate the best. I am most active and most creative between the hours of like midnight and like 5:30 in the morning. That's my period of highest productivity. It doesn't even matter when I wake up. It's just that period when everyone else is asleep and I can focus on my own shit and I know there's nowhere else I can go. You know, I can't go out to eat at 3 in the morning because nowhere's open. I mean, there's a couple places, but I don't want to go there every day. You know, I can't go and see what Victor's doing. I can't go and, you know, bum around. I'm trapped in my room at night, and that's good, because that's when I feel the most comfortable with just honing in on whatever I'm doing and being like, this is it for the night. And I love to talk, and I don't like to edit my dialogue. You know, I watch these back, and typically I go into these videos like expecting to cut stuff out. And you'll often see in my vlogs where there's a few small edits towards the beginning where, like in this video, I think there was one or two where I had to stop and think for a second, and there'll be 2 small cuts in this video. But once I get on a roll, I don't like to cut myself off because I enjoy listening to rambles. I enjoy long, unbroken speeches. Most of what I consume on YouTube these days is long-form content. I love podcasts, I love Let's Plays, I love vlogs that go on for a while and express an idea with every nuance that is possible. I love Film Crit Hulk, one of my favorite critics, because his posts are so long and winding and he doesn't cut anything out, and it can be a little annoying sometimes to see him explaining the idea in so much depth that I'm like, I fucking got it, dude. But there's nothing missing. There's never that word that could have been there that wasn't, you know? My videos, sometimes, I like to be a little bit more concise. Even though my videos are long, the writing itself is usually pretty concise. And as a result, sometimes I'm misunderstood just because I didn't clarify things better, you know? But I have a very specific voice and a very specific way I want things to come out. And I like the aesthetic of my vlogs. I like that it's just a guy, a weird-looking guy with sunglasses on in the dark, standing under a lamp, surrounded by anime figures, ranting ad nauseum. And obviously some of you like it too. And every time I get a comment that's like, you should make shorter videos, or I can't believe you don't edit these, or I can't believe he expects anybody to actually sit through 30 minutes of him talking. And I'm like, I don't expect you to sit through it. I do expect that some people will, because I know that some people will, but I don't expect you to sit through it. I'm not making these things this way because I think it will get me the biggest audience. I'm not making things this way because I even think it's the best kind of videos or even something that's admirable. I make them this way because this is how I roll. This is what I'm good at. I am good at long, unscripted, rambling videos that involve standing in front of a camera at 4 in the morning. I think it's 4 in the morning. I don't know why I looked over there. There's no clock over there. It's about 4 in the morning. And I'm, talking about my personal thoughts and emotions. And I don't, I don't know if the world needs there to be a bunch of Casey Neistats running around. I don't know if there needs to be anyone who, another Quentin Tarantino or like whoever I've wanted to be throughout my life. What's great about my content is that you can't get it anywhere else. If I was just Endless Jess 2.0, a guy who is not only one of my best friends, but whose work I respect so deeply, and every time I watch one of his videos, I feel like, why can't I be as genius as that? But then I have to take a step back and go, because that's not me. That's Endless Jess. I'm Digibro. I have my job to do. And hopefully some people appreciate it.